Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupara Shatarashatashmat Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupara Shatarashatashmat Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupara Shatarashatashmat Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Shad Vrinda Ki Jai. नाम अक्षय श्रीहरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट विराट गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री यमुना देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत वृंद की समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। Sorry guys, one second. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Itadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Kritam Tvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajvava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedustam Sarvabhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vedantasto Yabhadrani Vidhunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Prayashvavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Kshiptashta Kama Ditaranga Madhye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. One second. Dandavat pranams, Champak Didi, Rup Manjari Didi, and Nri Hari Prabhu, Dandavat pranams, and Raseshwari Mataji. Okay, great, thank you, Nri Hari Prabhu. Dandavat pranams Prajumna Prabhu, and Mantramurti Mataji, and Madhavi Didi, Gargaraj, Ganga Didi, Dandavat pranams to all of you. Hari Bol. So yesterday we read about the movements of the sun. Shall I read this? Today is a bit of a longer reading. We're reading more words today, over 6,000 words. So I don't want to make too long of a recap, but anyhow, I'll just go through it quick. The movements of the sun. As indicated by Srila Vadiraj Tirtha in his book Bhugola Varnanam, the 7 islands with their surrounding oceans are not flat, but they take a terraced type of arrangement. This terraced type of Bhumandal will help us reconcile the descriptions of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam about the sun's movements in Uttarayan, the northern course, and Dakshinayan, the southern course. Okay, so thus I've described Bhumandal with its dimensions and general characteristics. This is the sun's movement under the Supreme Lord's control. A bean seed has 2 parts, and one can understand the measurements of the upper part by seeing its lower part. Similarly, the dimensions of Bhumandal in the surface of the lower half of the universe. The dimensions of Bhumandal, the surface of the lower half of the universe, which consists of the Garbhodaka ocean, and the lower planetary systems, indicate the dimension of the upper half of the universe. The sky between the lower and upper halves, the earthly sphere and heavenly spheres, is called the Antariksha, or outer space, measuring 0.2 my in height. Sky between. And there's a Bhumandal and the Garbhodaka ocean. Universe. Okay. The sun is situated in the middle of the Antariksha. It is the hottest of all planets, and by its radiation, it heats up and lights the 3 worlds. Note, situated in the middle of the Antariksha means it is vertically situated above Pushkardvip at a height of 0.1 my. Horizontally, the sun's chariot travels at a distance of 15.75 my from the center of Mount Sumeru. Note, there are 12 star signs in the Zodiac belt, or the Kala Chakra, the time wheel. The time taken by the sun to move over half of the Zodiac belt is called an ayan, which is 6 months, right? For more details on the Zodiac, refer to chapter 22:7, which we read yesterday. And the note B on page 136. Okay. We'll get there. Uttarayan is the sun's movement from Capricorn to Gemini, during which it moves slowly. Okay. So from Capricorn to Gemini, it moves slowly, making the days longer and the nights shorter. Dakshinayan is the sun's movement from Cancer to Sagittarius, during which it moves quickly, making the days shorter and the nights longer. Equinoxes. The sun moves at a medium speed through Aries and Libra, making the days and nights equal. In Mesha, Aries, and Tula, Libra, the durations of the day and night are equal. In Vrishabha, Taurus, and Mithuna, Gemini, the days become longer and then gradually decrease by half an hour each month until day and night are again equal in Libra. From Vrishchika, Scorpio, the days become shorter until Makar, Capricorn, and then gradually increase month after month until day and night are again equal. Until the sun travels to the south, the days grow longer, and until it travels north, the nights grow longer. The description of daily movements of the sun. The sun travels over all sides of Manasotara mountain in a circle with a circumference of 95 my.
On top of Manasottara mountain are the residents of the 4 demigods in the 4 directions. On the east is the city of Indra, on the south is the city of Yamaraj, on the west is the city of Varuna, and on the north is the city of Soma. Devadani, Samyami, Nimlochani, and Vibhavari. Sunrise, midday, sunset, and midnight occur in all these planets in succession, thus engaging and disengaging people and work. Note, sunrise, sunset, midday, and midnight in the different places. When the sun is east of Mount Sumeru, then those who reside on the south of Sumeru perceive sunrise, those west, midnight, those east, midday, and those north, sunset. When it shines at noon, it is midnight in the city diametrically opposite. The people on Mount Sumeru experience midday always. Although the sun moves anti-clockwise relative to the constellations, with Mount Sumeru on its left, it also moves clockwise, being influenced by the Dakshina Bharta wind. What was that? Although the sun moves anti-clockwise, with Mount Sumeru on its left, it also moves clockwise, being influenced by the Dakshina Bharta wind. I don't really understand that part, but the sun rises in one city while it sets at the city diametrically opposite. When it shines at noon, it is midnight at the city diametrically opposite. When the sun travels from Devadani to Samyami, it travels 23 my in 15 gatikas, or 6 hours. One gatika is 24 minutes. The sun travels to the demigod's residence from Samyami, Nimlochani, Vibhavari, and Devatani. There's a chart on page 129. We'll look at that later. The moon, stars, and planets similarly rise and set in this way. The description of the sun god's chariot. Thus, the chariot of the sun god, worshipped by the Gayatri mantra, travels through the above 4 residences at the speed of 3,400,800 y in a muhurta, 48 minutes. The chariot of the sun god travels on a wheel known as the Samvatsara. This wheel has 12 spokes, 12 months, 6 rims, 6 seasons, and 3 hubs, 3 chaturmasya periods. 3 chaturmasya periods? Okay. Note, this is further described in the next chapter, verse 2. The chariot of the sun god has only one wheel, so it's a unicycle. A unicycle chariot. One side of its axle rests upon the summit of Mount Sumeru, and the other rests upon Manasottara mountain. Affixed to the outer end of the axle, the wheel continuously rotates on Manasottara mountain like the wheel of an oil pressing machine. So there's the sun god's chariot wheel, and there's Manasottara mountain. Okay. Oh God. Okay. A second axle is attached to Dhruvaloka. Its length is 3.9 my, or 1/4 of the first axle. Its upper end is attached to Dhruvaloka by a rope of wind, and its lower end is bound to the first axle exactly opposite to the saltwater ocean. The carriage of the sun god's chariot is 3.6 my long and 0.9 my wide. The chariot's horses, which are named after Gayatri in other Vedic meters, are harnessed by Arunadev to a yoke that is also 0.9 my wide. Although Arunadev sits in front of the sun god and is engaged in driving the chariot and controlling the horses, he looks backward toward the sun god. The Valikilyas worship the sun god. 60,000 sages named the Valikilyas, each the size of a thumb, stay in front of the sun god and offer him eloquent prayers of glorification. Other sages, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Nagas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, and demigods form into groups, 2, 7, or 14, and assuming different names in each month, continuously perform rituals to worship Suryadev, who has many names. In his orbit through Bhumandal, the sun god traverses a distance of 95 my at a speed of 2 ky and 2 croshes, 0.5 y, in a moment. All right. Oh, my computer's going really slow. Oh, big storm there, huh? Champak, Didi. Yeah. Oh, sorry, one second. Nuri Hari Prabhu, I actually can't remember what MY stands for and all that, but I think Y meant 1,000 yojanas, if I'm correct, but I actually can't remember. So I think Rup Manjari, do you remember? Yeah, Rup Manjari explained it to me, and I don't know, my mind just for some reason can't grasp it. Oh, come on. What the heck? My computer just froze. I have to close this. 1 second. Let me reopen this. Oh, God. You know what? I need to just start reading because we're going to be late. Yeah, I got to start reading. Okay. The orbit of the... Okay, we're going to go a little bit overtime today. I hope nobody minds. So then we read about the movements and glories of the sun. So in chapter 21, verse 8, and so in the previous chapter, which we just read, Shukadev Goswami mentioned that the sun travels in a clockwise direction, but also appears to travel in anti-clockwise. He also appears to travel anti-clockwise through the zodiac. Parikshit now asks for clarification. Parikshit's question about the clockwise and anti-clockwise movement. You've affirmed that the sun travels around both Dhruvaloka and Mount Sumeru, keeping them on its right. Yet at the same time, the sun, facing the signs of the zodiac, keeps Sumeru and Dhruvaloka on its left. How can we reasonably accept this? Shukadev Goswami's reply. Just as the motion of ants on a potter's wheel, which are moving in the opposite direction to the rotation of the wheel, is different from that of the wheel, the planets and the sun move separately from the zodiac, and thus shift through the different constellations and zodiac signs in the opposite direction. Note A, there is no contradiction, since there are two separate movements, the movement of the time wheel and the individual movement of the planets. Note B, the sun moves from the east to west in the sky from our point of view, but in relation to the zodiac and other stars, the sun appears to move from Aries to Taurus and to other signs in the opposite direction. Thus, the sun, moon, and other luminaries move in a clockwise direction on a daily basis, but WRT, I don't know what WRT means, the time wheel, WRT, the time wheel they move in a counterclockwise direction and seem to be entering different zodiac signs at different times. Oh God, sorry, I didn't get that. I read that weird. Anyways, I need to move on quickly because it's getting late. Lord Narayan, the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, responding to the prayers of the sages, divided himself into 12 parts and created 6 seasons with qualities like heat and cold for the enjoyment of the living entities according to their karma. Note, the Lord, famous as time, divided himself into 12 forms and 6 seasons for purifying the activities of the people. This means by manifesting himself as the time wheel, the Kala Chakra Gata, the Lord regulates and purifies our activities. Worshipping the Lord in Varnashram. By following Varnashram Dharma and worshipping the Lord as the sun, with faith, by yoga, and by regulated activities, people can easily attain the highest goal. The sun, the soul of all worlds. Oh, okay. WRT means with respect to. Okay. Anyways, I'm just gonna, thanks. 1 month is 2 fortnights by lunar calculation, or the time for the sun to cover 2.25 constellations is a day and a night for the Pitris. 2 months constitutes a season. Ayan. The time to move over half the zodiac belt is called 1 ayan. Okay. That's the time wheel, or the zodiac belt, the Kala Chakra. Okay, five names of the year. The time taken by the sun to pass completely through the Antariksha, the earthly plane, and the heavenly planets with slow, quick, and medium speeds is called Samvatsara, Parivatsara, Idavatsa, Anuvatsara, and Vatsara. Note, the 12 zodiac signs, such as Singha and Tula, get their names based on a form manifested by a group of stars representing that sign. For example, if a group of stars are arranged in the shape of a lion, then that sign is called as Leo, or Singha Rashi. All right. Movements and Glories of the Moon. Okay, so that's what we're reading today. Movements and Glories of the Moon. So just letting you guys know in advance, we're going to be going overtime today a bit. It's text 8, right? Yeah, okay. Evam Chandrama Arka Gabhastibhya Uparishtal Laksha Yojanata Upalabhyamano Rikasya Samvatsara Bhuktim Pakshabhyam Masa Bhuktim Sapadarkshabhyam Dineva Paksha Bhuktim Agrachari Drutatara Gamano Bhunkte. Above the rays of the sunshine by a distance of 100,000 yojanas, 800,000 miles, is the moon, which travels at a speed faster than that of the sun. In 2 lunar fortnights, the moon travels through the equivalent of a samvatsara of the sun. In 2 1/4 days, it passes through the month of the sun, and in 1 day, it passes through a fortnight of the sun. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When we take into account that the moon is 100,000 yojanas, or 800,000 miles, above the rays of the sunshine, it is very surprising that the modern excursions to the moon could be possible. Since the moon is so distant, how space vehicles could go there is a doubtful mystery. Modern scientific calculations are subject to one change after another, and therefore they are uncertain. We have to accept the calculations of the Vedic literature. These Vedic calculations are steady. The astronomical calculations made long ago and recorded in the Vedic literature are correct even now. Whether the Vedic calculations or modern ones are better may remain a mystery for others, but as far as we are concerned, we accept the Vedic calculations to be correct. Ata chapuryamana cha kalabhir amaranam Shiyamana cha kalabhi pitrinam aho ratrani purva pakshapara pakshabhyam vitanvana sarva jivanivaha prano jivash chaikam ekam nakshatram tringshata muhurtar bhunkte. When the moon is waxing, the illuminating portions of it increase daily, thus creating day for the demigods and night for the pitas. When the moon is waning, however, it causes night for the demigods and day for the pitas. In this way, the moon passes through each constellation of stars in 30 muhurtas, an entire day. 1 muhurta is 48 minutes, right? The moon is the source of nectarian coolness that influences the growth of food grains. And therefore, the moon god is considered the life of all living entities. He is consequently called Jiva, the chief living being within the universe. Name of the moon is Sudakar, who distributes nectarian rays. Esha Shodasha Kala Purusho Bhagavan Manomayo Namayo Amrita Mayo Deva Pritri Manusha Bhuta Pashu Pakshi Sarisripa Virudham Pranapyayana Shilatvat Sarva Maya Iti Varnayanti. Because the moon is full of all potentials, it represents the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The moon is the predominating deity of everyone's mind, and therefore the moon god is called Manomai. He is also called Annamai because he gives potency to all herbs and plants, and he is called Amritamai because he is the source of life for all living entities. The moon pleases the demigods, pitas, human beings, animals, birds, reptiles, trees, plants, and all other living entities. Everyone is satisfied by the presence of the moon. Therefore, the moon is also called Sarvamai, all-pervading. Tata uparishtad dvi laksha yojanato nakshatrani merum dakshinenaiva kalayana ishvara yojitani sahabhijitashta vingshati. There are many stars located 200,000 yojanas, 1,600,000 miles above the moon. By the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they are fixed to the wheel of time, and thus they rotate with Mount Sumeru on their right, their motion being different from that of the sun. There are 28 important stars headed by Abhijit. Purport. The stars referred to herein are 1,600,000 miles above the sun, and thus they are 4 million miles above the earth. Tata uparishtar ushana dvilaksha yojanata upalabhyate purata pashtat sahaiva varkasya shaighra mandya samyabhir gativir arkavachcharati lokanam nityadanukula eva prayena varsha charena numiyate savrishti vishtambha graho pashamana. Some 1,600,000 miles above this group of stars is the planet Venus, which moves at almost exactly the same pace as the sun according to swift, slow, and moderate movements. Sometimes Venus moves behind the sun, sometimes in front of the sun, and sometimes along with it. Venus nullifies the influence of planets that are obstacles to rainfall. Consequently, its presence causes rainfall, and it is therefore considered very favorable for all living beings within this universe. This has been accepted by learned scholars. Ushanasa buddho vyakyatas tata uparishtad dvilaksha yojanato buddha somasutta upalabhyamana prayena shubhakrid yadarkad vyatiricheta tadati vatabhra prayanavrishyadi bhayam ashangsate. Mercury is described to be similar to Venus in that it moves sometimes behind the sun, sometimes in front of the sun, and sometimes along with it. It is 1,600,000 miles above Venus, or 7,200,000 miles above Earth. Mercury, which is the son of the moon, is almost always very auspicious for the inhabitants of the universe. But when it does not move along with the sun, it forebodes cyclones, dust, irregular rainfall, and waterless clouds. In this way, it creates fearful conditions due to inadequate or excessive rainfall. Atta urdvam angarako piyojana laksha dvitaya upalabhyamanas tribhi pakshar ekaikasho rashin vadashanubhunkte yadi na vakrenabhivartate prayena shubha graho ghashangsa. Situated 1,600,000 miles above Mercury, or 8,800,000 miles above Earth, is the planet Mars. If this planet does not travel in a crooked way, it crosses through each sign of the zodiac in 3 fortnights, and in this way travels through all 12 one after another. It almost always creates unfavorable conditions in respects to rainfall and other influences. Tata uparishtad dvilaksha yojanantara gata bhagavan brihaspatir ekai kasmin rasho parivatsaram charati yadi na vakra syat prayenanukulo brahmana kulasya. Situated 1,600,000 miles above Mars, or 10,400,000 miles above Earth, is the planet Jupiter, which travels through one sign of the zodiac with the period of a parivatsara. If its movement is not curved, the planet Jupiter is very favorable to the Brahmins of the universe. Tata uparishtad yojana laksha dvayat pratiyamana shanaishchara ekai kasmin rasho tringsam masan vilambhamana sarvan evanuparyati tabadbhir anuvatsarai prayena hi sarvesham ashantikara. Situated 1,600,000 miles above Jupiter, or 12 million miles above Earth, is the planet Saturn, which passes through one sign of the zodiac in 30 months and covers the entire zodiac circle in 30 anuvatsaras. This planet is always very inauspicious for the universal situation. Tata uttarasmad rishaya ekadasha laksha yojanantara upalabhyante ya eva lokanam sham anubhavayanto bhagavato vishnuryat paramam pradam dakshinam prakramanti. Situated 8,800,000 miles above Saturn, or 20,800,000 miles above Earth, are the 7 saintly sages who are always thinking of the well-being of the inhabitants of the universe. They circumambulate the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu, known as Dhruvaloka, the polestar. Purport. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam quotes the following verse from the Brahmanda Purana. Jnanandatmano Vishnu Śiśumāra Vapushyata Dhruvaloka Vyapta Adityadyastarashrita. Lord Vishnu, who is the source of knowledge and transcendental bliss, has assumed the form of Śiśumāra in the 7th heaven, which is situated in the topmost level of the universe. All the other planets, beginning with the Sun, exist under the shelter of this Śiśumāra planetary system. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 22nd chapter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Orbits of the Planets. Now, let's go to the next chapter, 23. What time is it? It is 7:34. All right. I think we're doing okay on time. Now we're reading about the Śiśumāra planetary systems. And I forgot which verse we're reading up to. Okay. Nari Hari Prabhu, whenever it said MY, M stands for million and Y stands for yojanas. So 1 million yojanas. Okay, so we're reading till verse 9. Oh yeah, it's a short chapter. It's only 9 verses. We're reading the full chapter, okay. The Śiśumāra planetary systems. This chapter describes how all the planetary systems take shelter of the polestar, Dhruvaloka. It also describes the totality of these planetary systems to be Śiśumāra, another expansion of the external body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Dhruvaloka, the abode of Lord Vishnu within this universe, is situated 1,300,000 yojanas from the 7 stars. In the planetary system of Dhruvaloka are the planets of the fire god, Prajapati, Kashyapa, and Dharma, all of whom are very respectful to the great devotee Dhruva, who lives on the polestar. Like bowls yoked to a central pivot, all the planetary systems revolve around Dhruvaloka, impelled by eternal time. Those who worship the Virat Purush, the universal Lord, conceive of this entire rotating system of planets as an animal known as Śiśumāra. This imaginary Śiśumāra is another form of the Lord. The head of the Śiśumāra forms downward, and its body appears like that of a coiled snake. On the end of its tail is Dhruvaloka. On the body of the tail are Prajapati, Agni, Indra, and Dharma. And on the root of the tail are Dhata and Vida. On its waist are the 7 great sages. The entire body of the Śiśumāra faces towards its right and appears like a coil of stars. On the right side of this coil are the 14 prominent stars of Abhijit to Punarvasu. On the left side are the 14 prominent stars from Pushya to Uttarashadha. The stars known as Punarvasu and Pushya are on the right and left hips of the Śiśumāra, and the stars known as Ardra and Ashlesha are on the right and left feet of the Śiśumāra. Other stars are also fixed on different sides of the Śiśumāra planetary system according to the calculations of astronomers. To concentrate their minds, yogis worship the Śiśumāra planetary system, which is technically known as the Kundalini Chakra. I'm just curious on this. Is there a chart for the Śiśumāra planetary systems? No. Doesn't look like, no. Okay. And sorry guys, I'm not the best person to be reading about the universal form because I don't know. About the cosmology because it's not really a big part of, anyways, whatever. Shri Shuka Uvacha Atata Smat Paratas Trayodasha Laksha Yojanantarato Yat Tar Vishnu Paramam Param Vadanti Yatra Hamaha Bhagavato Dhruva Otanapadir Agni Nendrena Prajapatina Kashyapena Dharmena Cha Samakala Yugbhi Sabahu Manam Dakshinata Kriyamana Idanim Apikalpa Jivinam Ajivya Upaste Tase Hanubhava Upavarnita. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, 1,300,000 yojanas, 10,400,000 miles, above the planets of the 7 sages is a place that learned scholars describe as the abode of Lord Vishnu. There the son of Maharaj Uttanapad, the great devotee Maharaj Dhruva, still resides as the life source of all the living entities who live until the end of the creation. Agni, Indra, Prajapati, Kashyapa, and Dharma all assemble there to offer him honor and respectful obeisances. They circumambulate him with their right sides toward him. I have already described the glorious activities of Maharaj Dhruva in the 4th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Sahi Savesham Jyotir Gananam Graha Nakshatradinam Animishena Vyakta Ranghasa Bhagavata Kalena Brahmyamananam Stanur Ivavashtambha Ishwarena Vihita Shashvar Avabhasate. Established by the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the polestar, which is the planet of Maharaj Dhruva, constantly shines as a central pivot for all the stars and planets. The unsleeping, invisible, most powerful time factor causes these luminaries to revolve around the polestar without cessation. Purport. It is distinctly stated herein that all the luminaries, the planets and stars, revolve by the influence of the supreme time factor. The time factor is another feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone is under the influence of the time factor, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind and loves his devotee Dhruva Maharaj so much that he has placed all the luminaries under the control of Dhruva's planet and has arranged for the time factor to work under him or with his cooperation. Everything is actually done according to the will and direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but to make his devotee Dhruva the most important individual within the universe, the Lord has placed the activities of the time factor under his control. Oh man, that's long. Okay. Yata medhistamba akramana pashava samyojitas tribhi savaner yatastanam mandalani charantevam bhagana grahadaya etasmin antarbahir yogena kala chakra ayojita dhruvam eva valambhya vayu no diryamana akalpantam parichang kramanti nabhasi yata megha Shenadayo Vayu Vasha Karma Sarathaya Parivartante Evam Jyotirgana Prakriti Purusha Samyoganugrihita Karma Nirmita Gatayo Bhuvi Napatanti. Okay. When bulls are yoked together and tied to a central post to thresh rice, they tread around that pivot without deviating from their proper positions, one bull being closest to the post, another in the middle, and a third on the outside. Similarly, all the planets and all the hundreds and thousands of stars revolve around the polestar, the planet of Maharaj Dhruva, in their respective orbits, some higher and some lower. Fastened by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the machine fastened by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the machine of material nature according to the results of their fruitive acts. They are driven around the polestar by the wind and will continue to be so until the end of creation. These planets float in the air within the vast sky, just as clouds with hundreds of tons of water float in the air, or as the great Shena eagles, due to the results of past activities, fly high in the sky and have no chance of falling to the ground. Purport. According to the description of this verse, the hundreds and thousands of stars and the great planets such as the Sun, the Moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter are not clustered together because of the law of gravity or any similar idea of modern scientists. These planets and stars are all servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda or Krishna, and according to his order, they sit in their chariots and travel in their respective orbits. The orbits in which they move are compared to machines given by material nature to the operating deities of the stars and planets, who carry out the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by revolving around Dhruvaloka, which is occupied by the great devotee Maharaj Dhruva. This is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita 552 as follows. Yachakshuresha savita sakala grahanam raja samasta suramurti rashesha teja yasyagaya brahmati sampritakala chakro govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose control even the sun, which is considered to be the eye of the Lord, rotates within the fixed orbit of eternal time. The sun is the king of all planetary systems and has unlimited potency in heat and light. This verse from Brahma Samhita confirms that even the largest and most powerful planet, the sun, rotates within a fixed orbit, or Kala Chakra, in obedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has nothing to do with gravity or any other imaginary laws created by the material scientists. Material scientists want to avoid the ruling government of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they imagine different conditions under which they suppose the planets move. The only condition, however, is the order of the personality of Godhead. All of the various predominating deities of the planets are persons, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also a person. The Supreme Personality orders the subordinate persons, the demigods of various names, to carry out his supreme will. This fact is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10, wherein Krishna says, Maya dhakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetuna anena konteya jagar viparivartate. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. The orbits of the planets resemble the bodies in which all living entities are seated, because they are both machines controlled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 18:61, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddesharjuna tishtati brahmayam sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. The machine given by material nature, whether the machine of the body or the machine of the orbit, or called a chakra, that machine given by material nature works according to the orders given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead and material nature work together to maintain this great universe, and not only this universe, but also the millions of other universes beyond this one. The question of how the planets and stars are floating is also answered in this verse. It is not because of the laws of gravity. Rather, the planets and stars are enabled to float by the manipulations of the air. It is due to such manipulations that big, heavy clouds float and big eagles fly in the sky. Modern airplanes are like the 747 jet aircraft. Modern airplanes like the 747 jet aircraft work in a similar way. By controlling the air, they float high in the sky, resisting the tendency to fall to earth. Such adjustments of air are all made possible by the cooperation of the principles of Purush, male, and Prakriti, female. By the cooperation of material nature, which is considered to be Prakriti, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is considered the Purusha, all the affairs of the universe are going on nicely in their proper order. Prakriti, material nature, is also described in the Brahma Samhita 544 as follows. Shrishti sthiti pralaya sadhana shaktiresha eka chayeva yasya bhuvanani viparti durga ichanurupamapi yasya chacheshtate sa govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. The external potency, Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit, spiritual potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Material nature, the external energy of the Supreme Lord, is also known as Durga, or the female energy that protects the great fort of this universe. The word Durga also means fort. I just looked up that word yesterday when I was working on Srila Bhāgavatam Goswami's letter. This universe is just like a great fort in which all the conditioned souls are kept, and they cannot leave it unless they are liberated by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord Himself declares in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam evang yo veti tattvata takta deham punar janma naiti mam eti sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Thus, simply by Krishna consciousness, by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can be liberated, or, in other words, one can be released from the great fort of this universe and go outside it to the spiritual world. It is also significant that the predominating deities of even the greatest planets have been offered their exalted posts because of the very valuable pious activities they performed in previous births. This is indicated herein by the words karma nirmita gataya. For example, as we have previously discussed, the moon is called Jiva, which means that he is a living entity like us. But because of his pious activities, he has been appointed to his post as the moon god. Similarly, all the demigods are living entities who have been appointed to their various posts as the masters of the moon, the earth, Venus, and so on, because of their great service and pious acts. Only the predominating deity of the sun, Surya Narayan, is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maharaj Dhruva, the predominating deity of Dhruvaloka, is also a living entity. Thus, there are two kinds of entities: the supreme entity, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the ordinary living entity, the Jiva, Nityo Nityanam, Chetanas Chetananam. All the demigods are engaged in the service of the Lord, and only by such an arrangement are the affairs of the universe going on. Regarding the great eagles mentioned in this verse, it is understood that there are eagles so big that they can prey on big elephants. They fly so high that they can travel from one planet to another. Whoa. They start flying in one planet and land in another. And while in flight, they lay eggs that hatch into other birds while falling through the air. What the heck? That is amazing. In Sanskrit, such eagles are called shena. Under the present circumstances, of course, we cannot see such huge birds, but at least we know of eagles that can capture monkeys and then throw them down to kill and eat them. Similarly, it is understood that there are gigantic birds that can carry off elephants, kill them, and eat them. Jesus Christ. The two examples of the eagle and the cloud are sufficient to prove that flying and floating could be made possible through the adjustments of the air. The planets, in a similar way, are floating because material nature adjusts the air according to the orders of the Supreme Lord. It could be said that these adjustments constitute the law of gravity, but in any case, one must accept that these laws are made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The so-called scientists have no control over them. The scientists can falsely and properly declare that there is no God, but this is not a fact. Kecha naitaj jyotir anikam Śiśumāra sangstanena Bhagavato Vasudevasya yoga dharanayam anuvarnayat. God, I'm having such a hard time reading this morning. Anuvarnayanti. Whatever. This great machine, consisting of the stars and planets, resembles the form of a Śiśumāra, a dolphin in the water. It is sometimes considered an incarnation of Krishna, Vasudeva. Great yogis meditate upon Vasudeva in this form because it is actually visible. Purport. Transcendentalists such as yogis whose minds cannot accommodate the form of the Lord prefer to visualize something very great, such as the Virat Purush. Therefore, some yogis contemplate this imaginary Śiśumāra to be swimming in the sky the way a dolphin swims in water. They meditate upon it as the Virat Rupa, the gigantic form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh man, that's long. Okay. Yasya puchagre vakshirasa kundali bhuta dehasya dhruva upakalpitas tasya langule prajapatir agnir indro dharma iti puchamule dhata vidhata cha katyam saptarshaya tasya dakshinavarta kundali bhuta sharirasya yanyudagayanani dakshina parshve tu nakshatranyupakalpayanti dakshinayanani tu savye yata Śiśumārasya kundala bhoga sanniveshasya parshvayor ubayor apyavayava samasankhya bhavanti prishte tvajaviti akasha ganga chodarata. Okay. This form of the Śiśumāra has its head downward and its body coiled. At the end of its tail is the planet of Dhruva. On the body of its tail are the planets of the demigods, Prajapati, Agni, Indra, and Dharma. And at the base of its tail are the planets of the demigods, Dhata and Vidhata. Where the hips might be on the Śiśumāra are the seven saintly sages like Vasishtha and Angira. The coiled body of the Śiśumāra chakra turns toward its right side, on which the 14 constellations from Abhijit to Punarvasu are located. On its left side are the 14 stars from Pushya to Uttarashadha. Thus its body is balanced because its sides are occupied by an equal number of stars. On the back of the Śiśumāra is a group of stars known as the Ajaviti. On its abdomen is the Ganges that flows in the sky, the Milky Way. all these verses, all these texts are so long. Punarvasu pushyo dakshina vamayo shonyor ardrashleshe chadakshina vamayo pashchimayo padayor abhijid uttarashade dakshina vamayor nasikayor yatha sankyam shravana purvashade dakshina vamayor lochanayor danishta mulam chadakshina vamayo karnayor maghadinashta nakshatrani dakshinayanani vamaparshva vankrishu yunjita tataiva mriga shirshadhinyudagayanani dakshina parshva vankrishu pratilomyena prayunjita shatabhisha jeshte skandayor dakshina vamayor nyaset. On the right and left sides of where the loins might be on the Śiśumāra chakra are the stars named Punarvasu and Pushya. Ardra and Ashlesha are on its right side and left feet. Abhijit and Uttarashada are on its right and left nostrils. Shravana and Purvashada are at its right and left eyes. And Danishta and Mula are on its right and left ears. These 8 stars from Magha to Anuradha, which mark the southern course, are on the ribs of the left of its body, and the 8 stars from Mrigashirsha to Purvabhadra, which mark the northern course, are on the ribs of it on the right side. Shatabhisha and Jeshta are on the right side of are on the right and left shoulders. I wonder if there's Śiśumāra planets images. Whoa! See, look, there's lots of pictures of that. Of the dolphin. Cool. Anyways, I'll check these out later. Where are we? Hey, where'd it go? What the heck? I'll find it. Sorry, guys. Oh God, I am so spaced out. I just had another tab open. Sorry, guys. Uttara hanav agastir adhara hano yamo mukeshu changaraka shanaishara upaste brihaspati kakudi vakshasyadito adityo hridaya narayano manasi chandro nabhyam ushana stanayor ashvino buddha pranapanayo rahur gale ketava sarvangeshu romasu sarve taragana. On the upper chin of the Śiśumāra is Agasti, on its lower chin Yamaraj, on its mouth Mars, on its genital Saturn, on the back of its neck Jupiter, on its chest the Sun, and within the core of its heart Narayan. Within its mind is the moon, on its navel Venus, on its breasts the Ashwini Kumars. Within its life air, which is known as Pranapana, is Mercury. On its neck is Rahu. All over its body are comets, and in its pores are the numerous stars. Etar uhaiva bhagavato Vishnu sarva devatamayam rupam aharaha sandhyayam prayato vagyato nirikshamana upatishteta namo jyotir lokaya kalanaya nimisham pataye mahapurushaya bhidhi mahiti. My dear king, the body of the Śiśumāra, as thus described, should be considered the external form of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Morning, noon, and evening, one should silently observe the form of the Lord as the Śiśumāra chakra and worship him with this mantra. O Lord who has assumed the form of time, O resting place of all the planets moving in different orbits, O master of all demigods, O Supreme Person, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you and meditate upon you. We just turned 8 o'clock, but we're just on the last verse here, and then we're finished. We're almost done. Grahar Kshataramayam Adidaivakam Papahana Mantra Kritam Trikalam Namasyata Smarato Vatrikalam Nashyeta Tatkalajam Ashupapam. The body of the Supreme Lord Vishnu, which forms the Śiśumāra Chakra, is the resting place of all the demigods and all the stars and planets. One who chants this mantra to worship that Supreme Person 3 times a day, morning, noon, and evening, will surely be freed from all sinful reactions. If one simply offers his obeisances to this form or remembers this form 3 times a day, all his recent sinful activities will be destroyed. Purport. Summarizing the entire description of the planetary systems of the universe, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that one who is able to meditate upon this arrangement as the Virat Rupa or the Vishvarupa, the external body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and worship him 3 times a day by meditation, will always be free from all sinful reactions. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur estimates that Dhruvaloka, the polestar, is 3,800,000 yojanas above the sun. Above Dhruvaloka by 10 million yojanas is Maharloka. Above Maharloka by 20 million yojanas is Janaloka. Above Janaloka by 80 million yojanas is Tapaloka. And above Tapaloka by 120 million yojanas is Satyaloka. Thus the distance from the sun to Satyaloka is 233,800,000 yojanas, or 1,870,400,000 miles. The Vaikuntha planets begin 20,200,000 yojanas, or 209,600,000 miles above Satyaloka. Thus, the Vishnu Puran describes that the covering of the universe is 260 million yojanas, that is 2,080,000,000 miles away from the sun. The distance from the sun to the earth is lower planetary systems called Atal, Vital, Sutal, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, and Patal. Below these lower planets, by 30,000 yojanas, Sheshnag is lying on the Garbhodaka ocean. That ocean is 249,800,000 yojanas deep. Thus, the total diameter of the universe is approximately 500 million yojanas, or 4 billion miles. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 23rd chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled the Śiśumāra Planetary System. What time is it? Okay, we're 4 minutes over time. That's not way too bad. Tomorrow, we only have, I think, 3 days left of the 5th canto. We're almost done. It's either 3 days or 4 days. I think maybe it's 4 days. We have 4 days left. And then we'll be finished with the 5th canto. I'm a bit overwhelmed with all these calculations of where the planets are. It's not really my thing. But okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Haribol, Nitai Gaur Haribol, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribol. Just looking at all these pictures at Śiśumāra. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Vihari Ju ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmat Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmat Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj ki Jai Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmat Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmat Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashatarashatashmat Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Gorkishwaras Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Dashraghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vraja Mandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki Jai. Shri Mona Devi Ganga Devi ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. And thanks for going along with me even when I had no idea what I was reading and I was kind of getting confused all the time. But thanks. Jai Shri Radhe. Maybe when we're finished, we can watch that video again of all the that one that we already watched. All right, Haribol. See you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe.